Meredith, is either Sam or Meredith be released from this meeting to go to the faculty?
Both of them.
Good. I was going to say at least one of them should be there.
Yeah.
Oversee our student section.
And Shauna's going to give the report from there to see.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's the plan, right, Shauna?
Yes, that is. I'm giving the curriculum report, so
Excellent.
I'm staying warm.
It's really nice to talk to her. Did you bring this drink?
No, I forgot. But I did put a buzzer under your seat.
Oh, exactly.
Right. As soon as I start to see your finger move.
Yeah.
Nothing like shock therapy to
That's right.
change a behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Drastic times call for drastic measures.
It's just hard because we all switch contacts so much, right?
Yeah.
Different kinds of meetings and different platforms and
All day long when I'm in these meetings, it's that. That I'm the only one that can't share.
This is a board meeting question, so this is like a parent question. Is there a reason we don't do costumes at school? I mean, I can ask it during the board meeting if appropriate too.
Well, the high school does.
Okay.
ASA, I think it was kind of more distracting, I think, at that age level
Sure.
for the little ones. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there was a time where we ever did do costumes, and they do them more in aligned with kind of Spirit Week, where they do
Yeah.
different dress up days for different.
pajamas or.
We didn't know if it
hair.
was like a religious, issue or anything like that. We were just curious.
Yeah.
I don't think any of my kids have ever done costumes at UC.
Okay, cool.
I don't think we do Valentine's Day like we did when I was kids either, do we?
We used to do that though. That has been done. Not recently, but
It used to be, you had to bring one for everybody in your class.
yes.
Yeah, which worked okay.
Yep.
On a different question, are we ever going to have a Westwood crossing guard again, or is Ed just stuck there?
Well, the one that we've had is no longer quit. Yeah.
Oh, he quit.
Yeah, so they're,
He had Halloween decorations up for the
I know, he
kids.
was
and
really great.
one day I saw him like running with a race with some kid.
I know, he was very happy. I don't know the details, but yeah, but Ed is there until there's a new guard hired.
Huh. Okay.
He wants a hard chair. Somebody get comfortable here.
Rachel, as long as it's not a padded room.
They have one for your job after you've been there for about 10 years, they've just set aside a room away. They understand. Yeah.
I want to applaud you on taking steps to get rid of that stuff.
Oh, thank you. It's been an interesting ride. So
I'm sure it hasn't.
it's been good.
those who insisted that that stuff was absolutely vital to things they were doing.
We don't throw things away in Maine, do we?
No, generally not. It's Cindy Eisenhower's like big line of her, big part of her research line, right?
Right.
The reusable economy, which when she moved here, shocked her to no end.
Yeah.
Now her and a couple of her doctoral students have gotten significant publications out of it.
Everybody ready to go? Go ahead and call the meeting to order. All who wish can join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have one proposed agenda modification to add an item 8B. We put it under action items, I guess, but as Meredith and I talked about it, it's really a discussion, but we'll still just put it under 8B. So I would make a motion to modify the agenda by adding item 8B, property disposition proposal. There we go. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion or any other items to add? We'll go ahead and vote. Beth?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Also vote aye. So that carries 5-0. Next up are the minutes. I would make a motion to approve the minutes of September 8th as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? We'll go ahead and vote. Beth?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Also vote aye. Minutes of October 19th. I would make a motion to approve the minutes of October 19th as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just had one modification on, I guess it's page 3 under 7B discussion items. B2, for my comment there, I want that to reflect, agrees that there's value in a student survey, thinks as long as the process for selecting students for awards is transparent and the criteria are clear and appropriate, comma, then awards and recognition ceremonies are fine, period. Thank you.
I don't know if
Okay.
anyone else at home is having difficulties hearing, but the audio is not as good as it has been other nights. And I missed almost everything Mark just said.
We're going to check that right now.
Okay, thanks.
Are you hearing this end of the room? Have you been hearing me okay?
I have. It's been a little bit more muffled than previous nights, but I'm not sure if anybody else who's also on Zoom is experiencing that. No? Okay. I'll just turn up my volume.
Okay.
But Mark, I'm sorry, could you repeat what you said?
Absolutely. I gotta flip back. Give me a second. So it's page 3 of the October 25th minutes. Item 7B, Roman numeral 2. Under my comments, what is there is fine. Just at the end of that sentence, I would like to add a comma and then add, then awards and recognition ceremonies are fine, period. Was that better?
Okay. So any other adjustments? We'll move on to voting. Beth,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
also vote aye. Passes 5-0. Next up are warrants. I would make a motion to approve payroll warrant 9, regular warrant 9, bond warrant 48, and ban warrant 10. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? We'll move on to a vote. Beth,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Next up is public comment. Do we have any public comment? Last call for public comment? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to acknowledgements. Jake?
Nothing at this time.
Oh, Beth? Any acknowledgements?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, Patrick? Mark?
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing new here. Meredith?
I'd like to acknowledge the OHS cross-country teams for their state championship this weekend, and along with that, the boys and girls teams both won the state championship, their classification, but along with that, and to me, equally as impressive in that context is they both also were awarded the Sportsmanship Awards, which are voted on by their peers, other teams and other coaches. So to be the team that's on the top, but also be recognized as a team that, you know, kind, considerate, and sportsmanlike to others, I think is exactly what we want our students to reflect when they are competing or performing out in public. So super proud of them for both of those accomplishments. And then also just want to acknowledge and wish best of luck to our varsity boys soccer team who are competing in a half an hour in the Class B Northern Maine Championship as well. So both of those groups.
Great. Anything we missed? We'll go ahead and move on to reports. Lisa, you want to start?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I think like everybody is aware, we've got staff that's working really hard this year, and stress levels seem to be high. In looking at our numbers, I was trying to identify why it seems so much harder this year. In looking at April's numbers compared to our October special education count, we have an increase of about 17 kids, and I know we got another one since I actually did this report. And last year at this time, we had 43 full-time staff members when we looked at ed techs and teachers. And this year technically we're at 38.8 because one of them, they've got a shorter schedule because of classes. So they're only in an 80% position, but we also have 3 out on medical leave. So some of the kids that we've had move into the district have unanticipated and pretty significant needs requiring the additional support. I think the area that is being hardest hit is ASA. We've got some pretty some challenging students down there, and I've pulled one of my high school staff members and brought that position down to ASA, but we're still short. And when we look at illnesses and people being out because their kids are close contact, we haven't been a fully serviced staff yet this year. And I'm hoping that, I had 4 more applications for an ed tech position today. I don't know what happened today, but, it was quiet, very quiet for a long time. And then boom, 4 in a row came in. So I'm hoping we'll be able to fill these positions, but I'm not sure if it'll be enough. We're either going to need additional positions, or We're also looking at, for a couple of students, we don't have an ed tech on them. They do need more coverage, and we may need to look at outside supports for these students. So, and, we've been talking, I've talked to Meredith about it a little bit. Kristen is very much aware of it, and it's not something that happens quickly. Even Bangor Regional is full, and there's a waiting list there. So we're looking at other programs in the area that we might be able to utilize, but it's a challenging year. Another area that was that we're kind of hit in is our psychologists. When I wrote this last week, we had 7 days a month where we had a psychologist on board to support us. Since then, one that was only with us 1 day a month and would give us additional time if he could, has taken another position. So we've lost him. We have reached out to another company in the area, and we're super pleased because they've jumped on board and have picked up some of our evaluations and have just kind of eased the tension, because what we're struggling with is meeting our evaluation timelines of, a referral, and within 45 days, we should be meeting to go over the evaluations. And it's ever changing. And I hate to be negative, so I'm going to end this on a positive note and say that I'm thankful for each and every one of our staff members that show up every day and do the hard work. I know everybody's tired. I don't know why this year seems a little bit tougher than last year, but I'm grateful for those that show up every day. Any questions?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
First of all, thank you, Lisa, for that report. And I absolutely can understand how challenging this year is for a variety of reasons. I'm wondering, when we bring on ed techs, especially in this context that you just described of having unanticipated or students perhaps with particular needs, how are they kind of trained to work with those students? And if this is better for executive session or something, I'm new to when do we talk executive session or not. So I defer there to Brian and Meredith if this question is okay for public conversation.
No, as long as we keep it general and not student specific, I think it's fine to talk about training for ed techs.
Okay, thanks.
Well, and this year, honestly, it's been baptism by fire, just because of the needs of the students, and some of those are safety concerns, and I would prefer to be able to provide more training for staff, but we haven't been able to do that this year. I was pleased to be invited to an adult ed class that is for subs, so I'm excited they're doing that, and I'm going to present to those that are training to become substitutes, kind of the special ed piece of it. And I wish we had something like that in place for our ed techs. A lot of our ed techs are coming to us trained with experience already, similar experience. There's a lot of kind of school jumping that happens. The recent ones I've had are, there's a little less experience. So we really want to, it's a difficult thing. I wish we had the time. I really do. It's not, it's something that, one of the things that we do give our ed techs is safety care training, which is, mandated by the state. And a lot of our ed techs are supporting students on buses, but really how to support the students in the classroom. I mean, we do that on maybe early release days where teachers can have conversations with the ed techs, or if they have time during the day, or really it's the beginning of the day, the end of the day, to meet with their ed tech staff and talk about how, kind of brainstorm how to provide those supports, whether they be in the classroom or outside of the classroom. But it's definitely on the job training.
Thank you for elaborating. And I can hear that there's some needs for that, and some serious constraints on doing that as well. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Lisa. We'll move on to the curriculum report, which Shauna is going to give tonight.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to sit in for Meredith Diamond this evening, who is at the soccer game. So I'm just going to give a rundown of the curriculum report, and I'm happy to take any questions. I'm just going to sort of go section by section, so feel free to ask whenever. So our diversity, equity, and inclusion work in district is off to a great start this week. This is sort of the first really tangible point for many of our stakeholders, which is when we've sent surveys out to all the stakeholders groups, families, students, teachers, staff, and administration. And those surveys go all this week and close on Sunday, November 8th. So if you have received a survey from us or from our partner, Equity Alliance Minnesota, we gratefully ask that you, yes, fill out another survey, but really take some time and thoughtfully give us your thoughts and considerations on diversity, equity, and inclusion, so we can continue to work to build a healthy, safe environment that is just optimal for learning for all of our students here in Orono. Our partners, Equity Alliance Minnesota, will be on site November 17th through the 19th, and they will do a series of classroom visits, school visits, walkthroughs, really getting a feel of who we are and what we are. They'll also be doing a variety of focus groups with all the stakeholders. And so more information will be coming out on that to all the stakeholder groups as well soon. So I really encourage everybody to complete a survey if you got one. I know the principals put them in their weekly newsletters. Students at the high school got them today. Middle school will be on Thursday, and then the ASA grades 3 through 5 will be getting them throughout this week with their classroom teacher. Wabanaki Studies, our Wabanaki Studies work group, super excited. It's like Christmas with Shauna this week, because I am handing out the book that our speaker, Chris Newell, wrote. If you remember back on a previous report, Chris Newell, the former director of the Abbey Museum, gave a presentation to all of our staff on October 8th. He also wrote a book that has been published by Scholastic called If You Lived During the Plymouth Thanksgiving. And we bought copies of this, and today it was published, and today it showed up in a big box, and I was handing them out. Each of our libraries has 2 copies. Our ASA teachers will have copies for their classroom as well. We have copies in the middle school and the high school, and we're going to be running a small book study for interested staff members over the next couple weeks with that book. And so it's very exciting to walk around handing out books. Maybe I should say I feel more like Oprah, like a book for you and a book for you. So that's been exciting and very well received, that everybody's been receiving those materials. They've been very excited. Our Chapter 104 faculty are collaborating with Ruth Lyons, who we are working with this year, to really think about our current level of Chapter 104 programming and the framework, and considering strategies for expanding programming to further support our students in our schools. So we'll be definitely talking more about that in the future, but really right now we're looking at framework for accessing services and supporting teachers for in-class differentiation. And this is a shift that we're making that's also happening with the state, is a shift from sort of the gifted and talented identification to a more talent development approach, which really allows us to serve a greater number of students, which is really a great thing, I think, from a classroom teacher and curriculum perspective. Our district and state assessments are wrapping up. Asa Adams in the middle school, kudos to them. They have completed the NUIA administration. And we did get an extension from the state to November 12th, and the high school is wrapping up this week. That is sort of one of the things that I have been doing. Was called the NUIA, I don't know, the NUIA Wrangler this afternoon by a student when he saw me coming, because I'm following up with our students who need to finish their testing at the high school and working with them to coordinate that. And we will have an overview of those findings from this administration. We're aiming for the November 16th board meeting. And then finally, the instructional technology integration. The technology committee has really embraced in October working on defining what screen time is and what are developmentally appropriate practices for instruction. We've been looking at a lot of research and best practices, and also working with our colleagues here in the Orono schools to sort of get an understanding of what we do and how we do and what really are best practices for screen time. We're also undertaking a review of the student and employee computer internet use policies, and then we're going to collaborate with the policy committee. And we're also just continuing to work with getting a greater understanding of what the technology we use for instruction here in RSU 26 with our families and community as well. So there's a lot on all those different areas that is going on. Never a dull moment.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? I had a, go ahead, Beth.
A question about the survey. I'm asking this for clarification from someone in the community who asked me, is the community the families who attend RSU 26, or is it more expansive to Orono and the community that is served by RSU 26? Am I asking that clearly? Okay.
Yeah, so they have one survey that's been provided to us. It's supposed to serve both needs, and I'm not sure it serves both needs in a great way. I think it's more geared to parental perspectives, but the community, we put it out on Facebook and encourage parents and community members to fill it out. And if there's something that's worded in a way that just doesn't seem applicable, people can skip that, but we would like to get broader perspectives from the community at large as well.
Okay, I wonder if we can coordinate with the town to have it on their website or on the digital sign, if we're looking for that wider participation. Because as far as I know, you have to follow the Facebook page, and if your child already graduated or isn't, is too young for the schools yet, that they're just not going to really see that or access it. So thank you for the clarity.
Yeah, good suggestion. Thank you.
I will say, we'd like input from anybody, but it's mostly how are the schools doing assessment. So I think it might be hard to answer a lot of the questions, right? It's not a general kind of values questionnaire or something. It's how are the schools doing. So it might be hard to answer most of the questions if you don't have some experience with the schools, but certainly it's open and welcome to anybody.
If we really do want community input on this, though, there needs to be a separate survey. That survey as it exists right now is totally inappropriate for that purpose. Maybe a community member who's had kids within the last couple of years might be equipped to use it and answer it, but otherwise it's the wrong instrument for that. So if they really want that, they might want to look into a different survey. There's nothing worse than using the wrong instrument for something. And that one's not a good one.
Yeah, I don't think it's geared to community, but that's the way it was offered to us. And I'll have to go back and review it with that lens and that question in mind. And Shauna and Meredith and I will look at it and decide how much we want to publicize it to the community at large, if it indeed seems like it's ill-fitting for that.
Bad instrument almost always equals bad data.
Yeah, thank you for that input.
So I had one question, Shauna, and if I'm putting you on the spot, since I know you're standing in, just tell me to save the question for later. But the 104, everything that's happening there sounds good, but is there going to be some process to get parent input as well?
That is the one part of this report that I am not 100% certain about. So I will ask Meredith Diamond tomorrow about that and have her get back in touch with you. But I would assume, as you know, in the history of RSU 26, we are always, looking for parent input. So I imagine that's part of it, but I'll have to double check with Meredith Diamond.
Fair enough, thanks. I'll just make a comment that I'm super excited about the equity survey that we're doing and the process, the audit that we're doing about that. And I guess I'm probably, I think, preaching to the choir here on this particular Zoom call as I look around, but I would just encourage if people have questions about what we're teaching in the schools, ask what we're teaching in the schools. Don't listen to some national talk show host about what we're teaching in schools. Ask us what we're teaching in the schools. And I would also say in particular, the equity audit is really targeted to making sure we're meeting the need of every single kid in our schools. That's what the goal is. I hope it's pretty hard to argue with that goal of meeting the needs of every single student in our schools. So just emphasize those two things. Any other questions or comments for Shauna? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Superintendent Report.
So I was going to talk about the equity audit, but then I think we've thoroughly covered that. So I'm just going to focus on Ecuador, and then we can move down to the agenda for more discussion. So we wanted to follow up from our last discussion. I think that one of the questions that remained that we sought feedback from the company about was if the State Department rating, the CDC rating moves to level 4, or the State Department rating moves to level 4, what would the company do? And so the response was that if the conditions there became such that it's unsafe to travel, and with a level 4 status, that's one of the indicators that they use for that, that we would be given, you know, a series of options, one of which is postponing, which really isn't an option for us, given that all these kids are seniors that have pushed their trip from their junior year now to their senior year. And the other two were a change of destination, if that's possible. That's kind of, you know, an uncertainty if we're going to be able to change a destination if needed, and then cancellation. But, you know, the cancellation penalties are known to us and them. So we are sending out a letter to the families just to let them know of this, so that families know that we're monitoring the situation, and should, you know, the status change to a level 4 and conditions be determined to be something that we're not comfortable with, or something that the company's not comfortable with, that we will revisit the approval. So that was the last piece of information that I think we wanted to bring back with you from our last discussion.
Thank you.
I guess the only other thing I would say about the equity audit is the focus groups. I hope that board members can participate in focus groups. When we send out the survey, we'd like you to just, if you can sign up for that opportunity, to consider doing so. Because I think, you know, you all wear really important, you hear lots of perspectives in addition to your own experience with the schools that can help bring more data to that process. I would like to think we're going to get a great turnout for focus groups, and we may, but I think, you know, having individuals come forward to be a part of that process that you know, have maybe either long-term experience in the schools, or a specific role in like school board members, or, you know, experience with just a listening role like PTO and roles like that, that they hear lots of perspectives. I hope we have lots of individuals interested. There's a balance between, in the focus groups, getting good representation and not having groups so large that it's not a meaningful focus group experience. And so that's what we're working with Equity Alliance to try to find the right balance, because we don't want to exclude people who have important things to say, but we also want to make sure that if you're there, you have the opportunity to be heard. And so that's kind of the balance that we're trying to find with them for setting up the focus group.
Do you know, speaking of the focus groups, do you know anything about their methodology for how they construct the groups and what their kind of ideal range is for participant numbers?
Less than 20.
Okay, so that's good. And how do they construct them? Is it random assignment, or?
Well, what they wanted to do, and what we didn't really love what they wanted to do, because we felt like it was going to exclude people who are really passionate about this, potentially, depending on the response rate. So I don't know a lot about what they do in the background, but what they asked us to do was to put out a survey to families to ask families to sign up if you were interested, and that those families would then be randomly selected for focus groups. So that the size could be, limited. I think what we were hoping to do was have one that was constructed like that, and then one that was more open. If people didn't get selected for that one, they could come to this one that might be a little more just, open invitation. But we haven't heard back from them on that, and I think they're probably mulling that over with their process that they like to use. So I guess that's the concern of, wanting to make sure that we get good information out of focus groups, but also not wanting to exclude people who really have important things to say. So I'm not sure what the answer is to that, because we have finite time with them here, right? We have two nights really to do focus groups.
How many focus groups do they intend to do?
Two.
Just two.
With parents.
And so for the random selection process, I already answered the survey, but I don't remember the focus group question. So honestly, I don't know if I said I'd do it or not, but.
We haven't sent that out yet because
Yeah.
we're waiting until we get this clarification.
So on that one, will anyone who completes the survey then possibly be eligible to be selected at random, or would you have to indicate interest first?
You'll have to indicate interest, and there'll be a separate survey about focus group participation and interest in that.
So they do not do a random solicitation from everybody who answered the survey.
No, they don't connect the two.
Okay.
So when we, talk with Equity Alliance and see where we can land on this, we'll get out the information about focus groups to parents. The student focus groups will be randomly constructed, and then we're doing full staff focus groups, and then they'll be doing walkthroughs. They're going to be doing interviews with leadership, building and district leadership. So they didn't say they wanted to do a school board interview, but I think we need to ask that question more specifically. Shauna, can you write that one down? Because it seems like that would be something they might want to do with at least the sunset, or the chair or someone. So we'll find out the answer to that question. But really looking forward to their visit, and they're in a district right now. They're coming to Maine though, and doing Camden and is it Camden? Camden and same week. So they're at Camden during the first of the week, and then us at the end of the week. So their visit begins the day after next meeting. So I'll email you some information to update you on the focus group issue. Let me know more.
Beth, did you have a question?
I do, and it's a point that I think is just hard to answer, but I want to raise it, which is for any survey or focus group, right? That's trying to kind of uncover, right, like equity and access. Like the one of the challenges is, how do you get people to either participate in the survey, or hopefully both, right? The survey and opt in, for the focus group. How do I say this? Maybe the people who aren't typically often at, the board meetings, or at the, perhaps as involved in the school community. And I guess that's a question I just have had, as I've, in these last few weeks, as I've heard this work. And so I wonder, is there any are there initiatives to purposely reach out to particular families or groups of families that have either like left the system, are still part of the system, but are kind of more on the periphery? how do you identify those? I think, you know, I mean, to Mark's point, right, like the data that will be most useful is the data that's most inclusive. That's not what Mark said, I recognize, but you know, you were talking about the instrument, Mark, right? So to me, it's the instrument, and it's also, for this purpose, casting as wide of a net as possible. And so I wonder, you know, if there have been conversations around some purposeful recruitment to help ensure that we're getting as many people involved in this as possible, and maybe not, you know, the people who are on Facebook who follow, you know, the people who attend board meetings. I tend to think those will be the people, yes, that participate. I hope that it will be beyond that. So I tend to think there might be some more purposeful communications or direct communications needed. And I wonder if there have been some conversations about that.
We have not done direct communications with individuals. We've done different ways of outreach though, with the survey right now. So I sent it out, but I think I'm white noise for, you know, a lot of people. My emails, oh, that's another one from Michigan, so I'm just gonna read that later. But, you know, trying to have principals put it in their newsletters as well, and then having it on social media, having multiple pronged approach to this, I think is what was recommended from Equity Alliance. I think with the focus groups, there was some discussion about, do we, you know, ask certain people to be involved in that, or do we just do an open survey? And Equity Alliance recommended the open survey to cast a wide net in that way, rather than try to stack the pool one way or the other. So I'm not sure what the right answer, you know, because I get your point, but I guess, you know, they are thinking about, you know, their processes they've used over time that they feel have gathered the information that they needed. So I don't know, Shauna, have you heard any other information about that kind of targeted solicitation of participation?
No, very much what you said. We've just been sort of, this is the system that Equity Alliance has used, and, you know, we've sort of been relying on their process that they've used to gather the information in past audits as well.
I mean, I can think of two things we could do. Not saying we should. One is we could put out a, you know, robocall's a bad word, but a snow day call, right? Use the phone system. And I know we try and use that sparingly, we should, but maybe this is a high enough priority. We want to think about that to reach another set of people. The other thing, and I think maybe this is more what you're getting at, Beth, would be maybe some targeted phone calls from principals. And I think there's pros and cons on that. There's statistical pros and cons, right, in terms of samples that you're getting. There's also ethical pros and cons of calling somebody up and saying, we think you represent diversity and we would like you to ever participate in our diversity and equity survey. So I guess on that one, I'm a little more inclined to just trust what the Equity Alliance is recommending. But maybe we should consider the robocall or the phone call.
Yeah, I like that idea. You know, I think, you know, like Facebook, you know, just these other mechanisms where it's like you need it coming straight to you. And Facebook, right, you kind of have to opt in and you have to check it, and the algorithm has to be set up to show it to you that day. I don't check Facebook every day, right? And kind of the same with email, where, right, like you were saying, Meredith, right? It's like, okay, there's another, right, email from the superintendent. So, you know, I'm just aware that we, you know, the question of how do we cast, you know, a wide net, and also, you know, I appreciate, yeah, like I'm not so sure about the purposeful either, you know, it would just be such a shame if people didn't do it, and I get why they wouldn't. regardless of who they are. And I wasn't thinking of it as like who counts as diversity, because like, wow, that's so intersectional. It's impossible for me to kind of say, oh, this particular group, right? But yeah, I think looking beyond social media is a great idea to get as many people as possible to complete the survey.
One thing we have done in putting the survey out to the students, we've really emphasized that your families are also being asked to complete a survey. So with my high school students, some of them were like, oh, I'll have to tell my mom or I'll have to tell my dad. So there was that aspect that we're trying to, educate the students that their families have also been asked to complete a survey as well. Not sure if that's the best way to, high schoolers don't tend to talk to their parents about things like that, but maybe the middle schoolers would.
Meredith, do we know roughly for what percentage of our students we have a working parental or guardian email?
Most, because we test that a lot with contact tracing. And over the fall, we've made a lot of email lists, and I can only remember a very small handful that don't have working emails.
So
like
maybe
less than 5.
that's good, because I think Brian's robocall idea is one way to maybe address these concerns. A separate email explicitly saying, even if you didn't indicate in the survey, we would still extend the opportunity for you to volunteer for a focus group. It may be ignored as just noise. Same thing could happen with the robocall, just noise. But I'd be supportive of either or both of those options. Targeted outreach makes me nervous. Unless there's a damn good reason for it, cooking the books on a sample is usually not good. There can be legitimate reasons to oversample in certain instances, but I don't think that targeted outreach, besides the kind of ethical concern that Brian raised, the methodological concern doesn't strike me as a good idea.
Well, I think that one of the things that Equity Alliance said they would follow up with, and I think they said on Wednesday or Thursday, they were going to reach out to us just to let us know what our response rate had been. So we have a sense for how are people interacting with the survey. But I think, tomorrow we'll send out something that looks a little different, a little less wordy than the first time, that just maybe has the link at the top and then some information at the bottom. Because that's what I worried about a little bit with these postings, that you have to read this much information to get to the link. And so now that we've sent it out once, maybe flip it and do the link and then just, some encouraging and descriptive words underneath. So we'll do some different communication with this and try the robocall. And you're right, I try not to use the robocall unless it's something that people really need to pick up the phone for.
I mean, I will say when I do get a robocall, I pay attention. To Brian's point, it is effective, but I understand that you try to use it only for emergency stuff. And I think that's what it's known for in the community. Even if I see the call, I either pick it up immediately or check the voicemail right after.
Right.
It has a lot more urgency to it than an email does.
And the more you use it, the less it
Yes,
becomes that way.
exactly.
Yep. I mean, it could go out in the evenings. We're not interrupting people's work days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you for the feedback, good discussion, and we look forward to, a visit from Equity Alliance and then the subsequent, report and discussion that comes from this process.
I don't know if they're used to working with districts that have 2 social science survey experts on the board.
I'm going to say
But-
Yeah, probably not overly common for them.
Yeah.
Although they do some work in university towns in Minnesota,
Yeah.
in their client list, but maybe not on the board, so. So ready to just go to discussion items?
Yep.
So the first thing, before we jump into just a little discussion about winter sports guidelines, I want to have a couple of other updates on the COVID realm. I just want to reiterate, we're still not seeing transmission in school. We, tend to have some clusters of cases happening together. Sometimes we see they're related, familial issues that, you know, have cases that spread, so that's not in school. And then sometimes it just seems to happen where, like, I think it was last week, we had a couple of cases that were completely unrelated at different schools. Last week's full testing was all negative, which was great. And so this week's tests were done today. I did get a question about Thanksgiving, so we're going to send out a clarification about that. We cannot change our testing day. The company has said you can't change your testing day. They can't, the workflow, they just can't change everyone on a holiday to compensate for that. So we will not have testing that week. Similarly, we will not have testing, you know, I think it's around the 28th or so of December, that last week of the vacation. And then on our school vacation weeks in February and April. But, you know, one thing that I would say about full testing, I did touch one thing with full testing today, but Rachel and I have, you know, been able to step back from full testing quite a bit because, you know, our staff member who came on board, Jim Parker, is really running a lot of that program for us. The person we have from Concentric is a great assistant there. And so we're just trying to, you know, pull people out of having to be so involved with the testing program as much as possible. So our next step is to try to get, you know, like Karen Martin's out of like the all day or, you know, working in the full morning doing testing so that they can attend to other things. So that's really a great sign to me that it's really become more of an automatic and working well. The middle school is doing great work to get their tests done, you know, quickly and efficiently. And ASA is, you know, a lot of teachers down there are self-administering their full test for their class, which is a huge help. And Lisa Clausen, the nurse assistant at ASA, is doing a lot to help us down there. So it's just really going well, and I'm really pleased with where we are with the program. There are districts who signed up late who are still waiting on their spot because they had to wait now for the, you know, enough capacity in the company to ramp them up. So I'm really glad we got on board when we did. Vaccination clinics, we held the rescheduled clinic that we had scheduled the day that we had to cancel school or go remote. And so now on Friday, we have a booster clinic scheduled for staff, for any staff that want to get boosters. And then pending the CDC approval when they meet tomorrow,
Today.
the advisory committee?
It's done, I believe.
Oh, was it today?
I think they approved it within the last hour or so. I believe
Okay.
they were still meeting when I left to come here, but I do think they
So-
voted it. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but.
So yeah, we expect it to come this week. So pending that approval, the week of the 8th, we have a clinic schedule. We're just waiting for the final approval to send out the sign up for the age 5 through 11 families to get signed up for the clinic. Is the clinic on the 8th, Rachel? So the first clinic's going to be on the 8th. It was really tight. It's going to be tight, but we just felt like we couldn't send out the signups until the approval was official, but Rachel has it ready to go when it is official.
22 minutes ago.
Okay, so it is out. Great. We had around 80 sign up as interested. So I think we determined how many.
Unanimous,
spots did we
14.
determine? Around 80. I think we had around 80 spots in this clinic is what we could accommodate. So really pleased to have that coming for our families. The winter sports update. So there's been since we last met, we've been working on a regional level, and also just with the role that is my turn in the rotation to take this year with Penquist as the chair for the local Penquist region. So I sit on the state group of regional presidents, and so there's some work happening that I get to be involved with there and listen in and see what's happening at the state level. So there's work happening in both realms to try to see if we can come to agreement either in regions or across the state on, you know, some level of minimum standards for the winter season. And what I can say from those groups relative to our last discussion is I think there are two areas where there's more discussion and more variance in opinions. in the region, one of those is just a regional issue, and we're just different from everyone else right now, and that's around spectators. But I think where we're going to end up is where I heard you last time saying, basically, you know, what I heard out of the board is that you're wanting us to have reduced capacity. So not have 100% capacity in the gym, but allow spectators. And I've been working with Mike and Sam and Richard and Steve to develop kind of a framework for how we would do that. I think where we're differing a little bit from a few districts in our particular region is some in our particular region are wanting to just do home fans only. But I think more, and we're included in that, want to allow visitor fans for some, what we think are some important reasons, but probably a lower number than our home fans. So we're still moving forward that position of planning for reduced capacity, but allowing spectators. And so around the state, there's pretty much agreement that that's just a local decision based on the size of your gym and what you can accommodate. I think in our region, there's just a few that are advocating differently. So I think we'll end up probably with local decision on that. And then the other area where there's really some disagreement in different pockets around the state is around masking for individuals in play, like for athletes in play. And I think it's not the majority by any means, but it's a small number, but who are advocating that we should consider something different. And what I heard the board say last time is that while we have a mask mandate during the school day, that we should keep that for the time being for after school activities indoors of any sort. And so that's the frame that I'm taking forward is what our district is advocating for and wanting to see in guidelines. And I just wanted to tell you that those are the two areas where I see, you know, more discussion right now, particularly on the mask issue, and give you a chance to tell me, am I on the right track, you know, with our position on those two still? Is everyone still on the same page as we were last time? And just to say that MPA is involved in the state discussion. They're at the table with the regional presidents and with MSMA to try to develop something for the state. So I'm just not sure, you know, where that's going yet, but they're a partner at the table, which is nice to have them there joining that discussion. So is everyone still on the same page with what we represented last meeting around what we'd like to see in our winter sports?
Sounds accurate to me.
Yeah.
Is there, can you ballpark kind of maybe the percentage for division between people who are advocating schools that have the position that we do of mask required for participants versus mask optional or no mask people?
It's really, it's just in one region where I'm hearing it from a region. So that's how many regions are there? 8?
Okay, so within our region, within
In our region, I'm hearing it right now from 3 of like 25.
So it's a real small number.
It's a real small number. It's like a tenth, I would say.
So conceivably, if the rest of the region insisted on a mask requirement, or we don't play you, they're in a position where they either fall in line or they play round robins amongst themselves for the season. I mean, that's just reality, right?
Yeah. I mean, one region who had that, where that, the region where the masks optional for players during play is coming from indicated that they are aware that this is going to be a challenge for them in playing other teams, and that they, I guess as a region, or maybe it was just the school that this person was saying this, would, you know, make adjustments for opponents if opponents had stricter rules, whether home or away. So I think they recognize that that will be difficult for them to keep games on the schedule if they're rigid with that.
Where were we with, remind me where we kind of landed with spectators and mask requirements, both for home and away?
Yep, everyone, we said requiring masks for spectators, and that's what
Yep.
we've reflected as we've entered into regional conversations, and that's really uniformly what everyone around the state is saying they're going to do.
Okay, thank you.
Is this still just for regular season at this point?
Well, that's the conversation with MPA,
Okay.
because there are voices in our group saying to MPA, what we would really like is for you to develop what your tournament rules are going to be, and then we work backwards from that.
Yes.
Because you don't want to play all season one way and then get to the tournament and everything's different. So MPA seems a little hesitant to do that. I think it's because of it's 3 months out for tournaments.
right.
And what's a little messy is venues are different. They're venues in terms of venue restrictions and requirements. So it's a bit of a tangled web to kind of sort through for them, I think.
I'm sure it is, but I would think, again, for statewide basketball, track, regional even for track, and then possibly for swimming too, although there could be some exceptions there, that these facilities are they're not going to be school facilities in almost all instances. They're going to be either municipal or higher education, and they have their rules for the most part in place, and MPA or individual schools are going to have no influence over those.
It varies by facility. Like some
Yeah.
of them have them in place, but others for the players, it's up to the
Right.
host
Right.
group.
What I would, I guess I said this last time, I'll just reiterate it again. The one thing that I do want to make sure we differentiate between regular season and playoffs, because as you said last time, if for some reason you chose not to play a regular season contest because of a mass dispute or whatever, that's not going to work against the team in question to harm them. But one thing I would be unwilling to do is tell our kids that they can't go and play a playoff contest because the masking rules or something else don't meet the rules that we've set forward. I would not be willing to do that.
And I think MPA is going to have to take some leadership with that. And I think, I don't know where it's going. I'll be able to give you an update next meeting. We're meeting weekly with them right now. I think they're hoping that the CDC will take whatever is developed as a framework and then put their stamp on it and help us with, saying this is not just coming from MSMA and MPA, it's also endorsed by the main CDC.
Thank you.
Is there talk about what the capacity reduction would be in gyms, like 50, 75?
It's so different depending on each
Ventilation.
school, because some schools that, they just don't have the crowds and they have big capacities and they don't get a big turnout, so they can not worry about that as much. I can tell you what we are looking at specifically is if we're hosting games on a given day, that we're looking at calculating tickets based on 70% capacity, because we think that at any given time, we probably won't have more than 50% in the gym if we give out 70% capacity. If you have, a JV and a varsity or a girls and boys that, people are going to stay usually for the one they have, a family member playing in, and then they're going to leave. So, and then giving, a reduced amount of tickets per player for the visiting fans. So. And also looking at, especially for high school, probably not for middle school because of the size of our gym, but for high school giving, depending on the game and how many games and how many tickets we have, a limited number of student vouchers to get tickets for games. But we also talked about how our students could give, vouchers to their friends if they wanted, their friends to be able to come to a game, if they had extra tickets beyond their family.
I do think there should be a small number maybe, but at the high school at least, a student set aside. I mean, if there were a room at the middle school, I could see the value in that too, but that gym is obviously smaller, so.
Yeah, and I think that's our plan for high school, but middle school, it's just really quite small.
Yeah, it's just it's a size issue for sure.
I have a question about as we move towards, playoff season. And Mark, I completely hear what you're saying about not wanting to say, oh, we're not going to play the school because they don't have a mask mandate, and therefore we're knocking ourselves out of the playoffs. I understand that. As a point of kind of procedure, my understanding is that if we were going to do anything other than what we currently have in place, we would have to vote on that as a board, because we voted on a set of rules that applied to all school activities, both indoor and outdoors. And my understanding when we voted on that was inclusive of, you know, regardless if it was an after-school activity or if it was here in the school during the academic hours. Is that correct?
I mean, it's going to come back to the board. We've used vote, discuss variations, but it's not going to just quietly disappear and get ignored. So it'll come back to the board for the playoffs.
Great.
I'd say in particular, especially if there's a change in masking. I mean, that's something we need to discuss and figure out, do we need to discuss or do we need to vote? Because that would be a significant departure, right? So.
Okay, great, thanks.
But by the same token, I don't want to spend a lot of time debating it now because it is 3 months away and the COVID level is going to completely, knock on wood, completely change, but not betting on that one. But the NPA could produce guidelines that conform with what we have already and we'd be all set too. So I just don't want to burn cycles until we know it's a problem. But if it's a deviation, it'll come back to the board.
Perfect, that's all I wanted to just confirm. Thanks.
Yeah.
So we'll keep you updated as, you know, I know more. I think by our next meeting, I know we have our sports meetings coming up. Usually those are done before we leave for Thanksgiving. So I think, you know, we hope to be able to share information with families, and the extent to which we have information with regional agreements or state agreements, you know, we'll certainly share that at those meetings.
Thanks, Meredith. Because that was actually one of my questions is when does the winter sports, when do they start?
So middle school starts really right after Thanksgiving, like December or the 29th maybe of November, I think. So they start the first day we come back from the break. Mark,
Okay.
you know?
I believe so. High school preseason starts prior to that.
Yeah, high school starts the 22nd, I think.
Yeah, I mean, while it might not affect a lot of the players, I mean, you know, and I know this has been the state of the pandemic, right? Where groups look to other groups for guidance. And granted, you know, as a board, I think we have consensus around where we stand, but, you know, for any players or families that are kind of trying to gauge, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to participate? Are the rules going to change, you know, for the tournament? And what does that mean? And so forth. You know, I guess I'm just saying it's a shame that the organization that could kind of say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Here's clarity. People, let's, you know, this way everybody can make a decision. You know, hasn't provided that yet, and is waiting for, you know, a later time. I just think it would help families make decisions as to whether or not, you know, their kiddos are going to play on particular sports teams.
Yeah, I guess I lay that blame on multiple organizations unwilling to do that. Really, I think it's, you know, I think I've said this before, it's like a game of hot potato with this. No one wants to be the one to make this decision. So it's where we are.
Yeah, and thank you for doing the work you're doing there to advocate for what we as a board have reached with consensus, and also, you know, to maybe in your own way say, hey, how about this? Why don't we just do this? So thank you.
Sure. Okay, so that's all I have on COVID.
Okay, and I think Meredith and I decided there's no construction update unless somebody had a question on construction. All right.
I have, I hope, a quick question. You know, we've talked about the retention pond by the municipal pool, but there are a couple of other ones back by the track field and so forth. So I just don't want us to forget about those as we think about the one that perhaps is more prominent in view, but the other ones are still visible and, you know, kind of looks similarly to the one by the pool. So as we think of both bug control and aesthetics, kind of just want to put those on the board's radar.
So there is a difference. The one by the pool is a retention pond, which means it's designed to retain water for more than 48 hours after a storm. The ones in the back are detention ponds, which means they're not designed to hold water for more than 48 hours. So as far as the water issue, they do have an important difference. So I guess we'll watch and see if they work as designed or not, but that's the design scope. The vegetation that's growing on them is something that I'm not very happy about. I think it's happened pretty happenstance, and it's supposed to have been a much more designed and more aesthetically pleasing vegetation. So I've been talking to the architect about that. So that's kind of to be determined, but I'm definitely following up. They're supposed to be seeded with grasses and look, we might not be able to mow the grass in some of those steep slopes, but it should look like, a nice meadow or something. And it's kind of, to my eye, looks like a lot of weeds at this point in time. So that's something to follow up on, and we're following up on that.
Do the detention ponds have drainage like farther out? So they capture it, and then is it drained out somewhere?
They all have drains into the storm sewers,
Okay.
which is kind of how we got into this to begin with, is when you get a permit to put impermeable surface, whether it's a roof or a road down, you have to deal with the stormwater. And one of the things you cannot do is to flood the stormwater system. And so that's where these come in, is we hold the water for a period of time before we release it into the stormwater system. So they're all designed to release into our stormwater system, but to hold it back so that the system doesn't get overwhelmed in a heavy rain. And the detentions are really designed to just hold it for, 2 or 3 storms a year where we have really heavy rains, hold it for up to 48 hours. And they do, yes, to directly answer your question, have pipes going into the storm system. Even the retention pond does. But the amount of time the water is supposed to stay before it goes into those pipes is variable.
Is it a manual control?
No,
or is it's designed, right, just to slowly infiltrate the soil? Okay.
Right. Yeah, you probably can't see it, but under those detention ponds, there is a whole series of pipe work underneath the soil, and there's cloth filters. And so exactly like you said, it's using the soil and the vegetation to filter the water slowly into the pipes and then out. Whereas the detention pond, actually, the bottom, I believe it's still mostly a filtering, but it's designed to be a much slower filter. So it's expected to have water, not year round, but a significant fraction of the time.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I do want to kind of mention that, though, as like aesthetics back there. I know they're not seen as much, but as we bring back fans, especially to those fields back there, perhaps thinking about it, especially if they're going to do any work on the retention pond.
Yeah, I'm still hoping we get some nicer vegetation on those surfaces.
I actually want to follow up on that a little bit. My understanding was that we were only supposed to have one detention pond, the one that's out by the road behind the middle school. Is that correct?
No, there were two back there.
There was a lot of remediation we had to do for the 1980 edition.
The entire high school was not remediated.
So the one back by the practice football field in the corner of the track was planned.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that is certainly holding water for far longer than 24 to 48 hours, and far more than 1 or 2 or 3 storms. I mean, there was water in that pond for pretty much the entire football season. So if it's supposed to shed water more quickly than that, it is not doing it. There's something wrong with the design or a pipe or something. I mean, there's water in there all year. There's water in there right now.
Okay. I mean, I think we should kind of keep our eye on it, and the whole contractor process, we hold some money back until things are fully to satisfaction, and that's one of the things we need to keep watching.
There was so much water in there we couldn't practice kicking through the uprights on the practice football field because it was full of water. So every time we would kick, it would go into that pond, so we couldn't.
Okay.
Was that during the times that because we've had an exceptionally wet fall.
It was pretty much the entire season. Now, part of it probably had to do with the amount of water coming out of those sprinklers for a while, which supposedly were turning off, but I don't really think were. But we'll see without those running, but we haven't had sprinklers on up there in a long time. And the fact that there's water there now, I mean, the seniors had that haunted tour fundraiser over the weekend. They had to construct a bridge to get across the drainage ditch because there's so much water, and that's before the pond. So then if you go down towards the pond, there's a significant amount of water. If it were a retention pond, that would be fine, but if it's in fact a detention pond, it's not fine.
I'm almost positive it was designed as a detention.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought there was only one. I thought there were two ponds, one retention by the pool and one detention back by the road. So that one seems to be working fine. It doesn't get water very often. When it does,
Yep.
It seems to shed it pretty quickly. The one by the practice football field and track is not shedding water at all.
Yeah, okay, we need to keep an eye on it.
We have a meeting with Robin tomorrow.
Yeah, we're meeting,
Just bring that up again, okay?
yeah. I forget the design criteria, but it's a once in 100-day storm, retain the water for 2 days, or it's something like that.
It's not doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard from community members who live on Westwood that it pretty much is just full of water all the time. So that's why I asked about it.
yeah, okay.
It'd be great for mosquitoes.
Yeah, next summer we'll have to have a mosquito strategy, but
But I guess I would say to, where was this water going? It was going, places that it was not good what it was doing before it was being held here. So I'm not sure for our neighbors that it was a great thing that it wasn't being held for a bit before it got swept off into the storm drain system. So we want it to, filter and do its job, but I think it's probably better for the neighbors that it's holding water there as opposed to running off into, areas that impact them.
right, it's not running onto Westwood, for example. Yeah, it's not creating water, obviously, so, but, yep, we should look into it. But, yeah, the bottom line is, when you build something as big as our entire high school, it's putting a lot of water out really quickly. And we had not dealt with that in 1980 when we did do the construction. And so we ethically, we should have dealt with it, but we had no choice at this point. EPA wouldn't give us a license until we dealt with not just the new construction, which was fairly small, but the old construction. And that's how we've ended up with these. And like Meredith said, we want them to work correctly, and we can hold the contractors to the task to work correctly. But it's also probably important to recognize that this was all running off somewhere else. Whether it was our sports fields, which were pretty famously soggy, or our neighbors, or down the street or into the storm drains and overwhelming the water treatment plant. So we'll look into it. We're meeting the architects tomorrow. Anything else on construction? Don't think we have any staff hires. We do have co-curriculars. So I would make a motion to approve the hire of the slate as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Just to read it, Orono High School chess team, Matthew Terrell. The next three are at OMS, cheering, Jill Conley, Nordic skiing assistant coach, Ingelise Kinstedt, and Nordic ski coach, Jen Branchflower. Any discussion or questions? We'll go ahead and vote. Beth?
Aye.
Jake? Aye. Patrick?
Aye.
Mark?
I'll vote aye, and also thank Bob Bass for starting that OMS cross-country ski team. It seems that he's not coming back this year, which is too bad, but without him, we would not have that ski program. So thanks to Bob.
Yeah, it's been very popular. And I'll also vote yes. So that's 5-0. Next up, property disposition proposal. Meredith, you want to?
Sure. So Bill Cody's here with us tonight in the event you have questions, but one of the things that Bill hit the ground running with when he started was taking a look around and just assessing what we have and what we're using and space utilization, and brought me, a list of things we wanted to talk about around some things that we had here that were not in use. And so we bring to you tonight a list of items that we are proposing. We follow our property disposition policy to begin the process to either sell or dispose of. And so we've looked carefully at the policy and tried to put together some information to help us, guide our use of our procedure forward with this, following the policy. We haven't done this in this scope since I've been here. We've done a thing here and a thing there, or things that just really didn't have value that we were just disposing of. And so this is going to take, probably multiple approaches, but most everything on here we think is of the value. We should at least offer it for sale to see if we can find anyone who's interested in this. And then there's one item that exceeds the threshold of the value that's cited in policy that says, because it's over $5,000 in estimated value, that we need to offer it to the town for the right of first refusal for buying that one item, the Kubota tractor. So, we provided you with some information. Bill provided you with kind of a rationale on the Kubota tractor and the John Deere zero-turn mower, and the value versus the cost for repair, and then the use that, we're not using them the extent to which they would be worth keeping at all. And then the rest of the items really, I think they're pretty self-explanatory. They're either from the old wood shop, the kitchen, when we took out all of our stuff in the kitchen this summer, and either repurpose certain things, and then certain things we just don't have room for. And by the way, those items from the kitchen, we've tried to sell already once through just some networking that Ben had, and haven't been successful in doing that. So we're going to try one more time. And then some other things just from when we used to handle our own outside lawn care before we did contracted service for that, like the snow blowers and things such as that. And then finally, the other area is we have a dark room here that when I asked the last time people remember using it, well, I asked two people, and one of them was our teacher who's been here for 17 years, and it hasn't been used since she's been here. So that's a pretty long time to hold on to this equipment. So we'd like to dispose of this equipment, and it really just says we should inform the board. And then the one item that's over $5,000 in value, the policy says we should consult with the board about putting that item up for sale. So wanted to find out if you have any questions or feedback for Bill or myself before we proceed with advertising these. I don't know if everyone can see. There was applause.
We had applause from one board member. Yeah, no, I agree. It's space is at a premium, especially storage space in this district. So I fully support the plan. And, most of these things, if we make a good faith effort to sell them and we can't sell them, the next step in the policy is just to dispose of them. And I'm fine with that too. The things that are over $1,000, maybe we need to try a little harder to sell, but.
What kind of a Kubota is it?
I'm trying to remember, it was the one L38.
Brand L38. I put a model number in the newer spreadsheet in your folder. It did make it on the one that got printed because we were still checking it down.
I'm curious.
Yeah. So, our process with the Kubota first would be to reach out to the town, see if they have interest. The rest of the items, Bill and I will talk about a strategy to get those advertised. I think the policy states that we should advertise these for a week before we, accept offers for these. And so we'll put those out probably on the website and put links out, different places, email, Facebook,
A lot of the price, a lot of the cost I found on the internet, between eBay, some other places. So they're just rough estimates as to what might be out there.
The stuff that came out of the old shop, it might be helpful to send it to someone at UTC. Not that they can use it, but they may have students who would be interested in adding that. Especially, there's a couple of those saws, they're older, but they're pretty nice pieces of
They're
equipment.
really nice, and you start looking on eBay, they're worth some money, but some of the stuff we're going to use, we're just never going to use.
No, I know, but those will be of use to someone.
It's a good thought. Yep.
I like offering it to UTC. Some of especially the shop equipment too. I think Uncle Henry's is worth an advertisement.
Yeah, UTC probably can't use most, if not all, that stuff, just because safety regulations have probably changed on those saws. But for students or even instructors there in like the woodworking program or stuff that wanted to add those to their home shop. I mean, my dad's got a pretty extensive collection of saws, and those ones in there are pretty nice.
The bandsaw especially.
Yes,
The
it is
bandsaw
very nice.
tremendous bandsaw.
And we should try and sell the photo equipment. I just don't know how much of a market there is for film-based photo equipment these days.
You
So,
know, the most expensive one I found on eBay for any of about $2,000.
wow.
But there again, it's eBay, it's hit or miss. If you sell it locally, you're probably not gonna get anything, but.
Yep.
Wonder how many of our students know what a dark room is used for.
Listen, I actually mentioned to somebody that'd been here for 5 years and they went, we have a dark room.
I didn't know we had
Didn't
one.
know.
Yeah.
I have no idea where it is.
Yeah.
And there again, it's spatialization. You walk in there, it's a great little spot, but
Right.
it's covered, it's everything, so we
Yeah.
gotta kind of done that out. So.
Who knew?
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
maybe even the art department at the university, you know, not that they would take it, but again, similar to Mark's suggestion of the UTC, it's about letting other people know that this equipment is out there, because there are people who still use it.
Yeah.
Good suggestion, thank you.
Did you by any chance make your way up into the white shed up by the track?
Which one? There's two up there.
The bigger one that's right as you walk?
The metal one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you, that hasn't been cleaned out yet, has it?
I don't know. I think you're talking all the pads.
Well, I know there's stuff for pole vault and stuff up there, but in the back corner, there used to be a bunch of old air exchange and equipment and.
That I've not made my way to the back.
Okay. It might not still be there, I'm not sure, but it was there for quite some time.
I still continue to find areas.
There's stuff, there, at least as of relatively recently, there was still stuff.
Yeah, so we'll take a look. Yeah, I'll try to get back in there and take a look. Yeah.
Make sure nothing bites you.
Mhm. Okay,
All right,
thanks, Bill, for your work on this.
yes, thank you.
I will.
Subcommittee reports. Policy Subcommittee met on Monday. We are back, switched to Mondays at 3:30, first Monday of the month at 3:30 for the school year. We processed a bunch of things. We'll bring 4 policies to the next board meeting. One's a second read and 3 of them will be minor revisions, and we have several more that we're working on through Policy Subcommittee next time. So, but with those done, with those 7 policies all told, we'll have caught up with the state legislature and we'll be back to our policy review. Knock on wood, we'll maybe finish our policy review this year. We're down to the I's and the J's, which are pretty thick, but then the K's drop off really quickly. So
We just in time to start the cycle again.
start the cycle again. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm hoping, next year the legislature will be starting their process. We might have a quiet year next year.
Maybe.
UTC, any updates?
Not since the last meeting. There's a meeting this coming Thursday.
Okay. Spruce,
Nothing.
Curriculum Subcommittee hasn't met. Was it next Thursday? Or is it, yeah,
Wednesday, I think, next week.
next Wednesday, right,
Because
because
of
of
the-
Veterans Day.
I did
Yeah.
actually have a question about spruce, and I probably should have asked Lisa during her presentation, but I didn't think of it. But, I mean, I was on the spruce board for a few years, and I don't remember, she mentioned that Bangor Regional is already at capacity, and there's a waiting list. How common is that, Meredith? Is that the norm, or is that not the norm?
They don't always have a waiting list, but I think they're struggling with staffing issues as well.
Okay,
I
so,
think it's part staffing issues there right now, just like we're having staffing issues. But there, at times with certain age levels, they hit capacity more than other age levels or in other certain programs.
okay. Thank you.
It's entirely based on staffing issues right now. So pretty much those on the waiting list, they're waiting to hire an ed tech specifically for a student before they bring them in.
Thank you.
One thing we didn't put in here, but maybe subcommittee reports, is just to update you on the MESBA delegates assembly.
Oh,
So I brought you that list of things. Basically, every proposed change got passed. Most of them by pretty healthy margins. I proposed a modification and it got passed by the group. So the one that was about making curriculum for in-person, what was it, in-person, hybrid, and online or something, modified the online to say when beneficial or necessary, so it wasn't sort of leveling up or equilibrating. the 3 modes of instruction. But other than that, there were a couple of places we got into some debate, but all of the resolutions passed. So everything you saw passed and is now policy of MESBA to advocate to the legislature for. Any other business? Any requests for future agenda items? Second public comment period. Any public comment? Last call for public comment. Seeing none. So next board meetings. So correction to what's on the agenda, we're actually going to, we should confirm this with the board, but the thought is do the data workshop, the fall data workshop at 5 p.m. Same date, so Tuesday, November 16th, but at 5 p.m. To do the data workshop and then have the regular board meeting at 6 p.m. So I guess if people can check calendars now, that would be great, and let us know if that doesn't work, but.
You say 5?
5, yeah. Seems like it's okay.
Give me just a second.
Okay, waiting for one more person to check.
Yeah, I can make that work.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and do that at 5 p.m. for the data workshop, and then we'll have the regular meeting at 6. And any requests for information or follow-up?
Are we gonna be able to get the data that are gonna come for that workshop at least a few days in advance so we can review them, or will we see it for the first time there?
I'm not sure yet. The high school still, they're probably gonna need all of next week to wrap up.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Anything we could get even a few days in advance would be helpful, especially for me. I need paper, and I shouldn't, but I do.
Yeah.
Oh, my note wasn't clear. Did you say the kids' clinic was being for the 8th of November or December?
November.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure I wrote it down right. Thanks.
All right, I would make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead and vote. Beth?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes 5-0. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bill.
That's good.